Welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Dr. Katie VanValin. She's with the University of Kentucky Beef Extension Specialist there. Now, Katie, today we're going to talk about winter feeding, and we do this every year, but this year it's probably even more important to pay attention to.
We had a really, really wet spring. So it was pretty hard to get out in the hay fields and get those fields cut on time. So a lot of our first cutting hay was pretty mature, and we know that as maturity goes up, quality tends to go down. Second cutting, a lot of us have been pretty dry, so that's kind of been a little bit more limited than maybe what we thought. So we may have to get by on what we cut in that first cutting. When we think about feeding hay in general, our lactating cows or those heifers that have higher nutritional requirements, they are prime candidates for needing some form of supplementation with that kind of typical grass hay forage base. And so if we're in a situation where quality is a little bit lower than normal, then getting a hay sample pulled is pretty critical to knowing what we actually need to supplement. Now, fortunately, feed costs are a little more manageable than they have been for us in the last couple years from the cattle side. So, that's something that we can supplement a little bit and still be okay. So we don't want to skip that, this year because our cattle prices are pretty good and those markets are pretty strong. And, if we think about skimping on nutrition now, it's going to be much harder for those cattle to get rebred if they're a little bit thin, because they're kind of going into survival mode at that point if we're not meeting those energy requirements. And so if they start to get thin, then they don't breed back as well, and that's next year's calf that we're impacting. And where we're at in the cattle cycle, we want to make sure that we're getting all of those cows bred that we can on our operation. So now is not the time to skimp on nutrition. It'll pencil out to do the math and go ahead and get a good supplement out there for your cattle. But the basis of any good supplementation program is starting with knowing what's in your hay, and what you have available. Try to match that up with our animals' nutritional needs, a little more easily, meaning that we're going to feed the better quality stuff to those animals that have a higher nutritional requirement at a certain time of the year. So that's why I'm such a fan of going ahead and getting that hay tested early. The energy and protein content really doesn't change a whole lot while it's in storage.
We have a great opportunity with Kentucky State University's new forage lab that they're testing that hose hay samples for free.
Mhm.
So there is no cost associated except just the time to go out and pull those samples. And then we also have the Department of Agriculture who's still testing hay, $10 a sample, inexpensive to get that information. But Katie, when they get the information, a lot of time they're like, I'm not for sure what I need to supplement. We have tools to be able to help them process that.
We do, yep. So there, for mature cows, there is the UK Forage Supplement Tool is a very simple little calculator. You can go on there. It tells you exactly what information to pull from your hay test results. To enter in there what kind of animals you have. Do you have, dry cows or lactating cows? And then it lists a whole bunch of supplement options, and then you just hit calculate, and it will determine how much you need to supplement per head per day. If you've got cows that are a little bit thin and we're trying to manage, putting condition on them, or if you've got heifers, that tool's not going to work in those scenarios. So in those situations, I tell folks to either work with a nutritionist, reach out to your county extension agent. We buy hay by the roll, but we feed it by the cattle consume it by the pounds. And those rolls can vary greatly in how much weight is actually in there, how much dry matter is actually in there. So don't just assume that all those rolls are 1,000 pounds. A lot of our bales here at the research station, we've weighed a lot of bales for research purposes. So I can tell you ours average about 850. So if I just assumed they were 1,000 pounds, I would be off by quite a bit.
Yeah. And so cattle prices are high, but we don't want to give away some of that profit. We appreciate you watching the Farm and Home Show and hope you have a great day.